Whatever one does in accounting, it's really important to keep in mind that you want to do it ethically. You want to keep in mind all the controls that you should have in place to protect your fixed assets and other assets of the business. And also make sure that you've got internal auditing in place to ensure that all of this is being carried out correctly. So what does this actually mean? Well, the first thing is we need to look at the concept of ethics. Ethics refers to what is considered moral or acceptable behavior. Keep in mind that this can be very different for different cultural groups, different countries, people from different backgrounds, etc. But from an accounting perspective, we want to ensure that there is transparency. And what do we mean by transparency? It means that we're wanting to disclose any relevant information and actions specifically to those people to whom we are accountable. In other words, who are we responsible to? Who are your actions going to actually affect? And who has a right to know about the actions that you are doing. And so a quick test is you can just say to yourself quite simply, who do I need to answer to? And am I being transparent with that person? And that will give you a very good idea of whether the action is actually ethical or not. So make sure that in all your dealings in accounting and others, you are transparent with those to whom you are accountable. When you are answering your questions in the exams, keep these two concepts in mind. It'll make it a lot easier for you to be able to answer your question. Of course, you can also refer to if something is legal and what the results would be if you get caught. Would you land in jail, or what are the actual implications? But accountability and transparency are the most important. Good corporate governance is something that is really important these days as well. And what we mean by corporate governance is simply how you are managing your business. Specifically, we want good corporate governance. In other words, that you are managing your company responsibly and ethically, keeping in mind all the other people to whom your actions are going to make a difference. In other words, your stakeholders. Now, there's a King 4 report, which is really a very important guideline. It's actually now adopted internationally. Very interesting, because it originated in South Africa. It was created by Mervyn King. And what the King 4 report does is it gives guidance and recommendations to companies of how they can manage their business ethically and responsibly. It is a set of guidelines. It is a set of recommendations. It is not actually law, although, interestingly, it has been adopted into laws in many countries, including South African Companies Act. And the idea behind King 4 is that we want to have a responsible approach to our accounting and to the management of our business. And that means that we are going to report not only on our profits, as was always done in the very old days, but also on our environmental awareness and responsibility and our social responsibility. These three things are often referred to as planet, people, profit, and it's known as the triple bottom line. And these days, instead of just producing an annual report that has got your financial statements in it, these days one also should report on all of these different aspects, and that is known as integrated reporting. In other words, you're reporting on more than just your profits. And any companies that are listed on the JSE do need to produce an integrated report. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that we comply with all the requirements of the Companies Act of South Africa. Obviously, this is the legal requirements of what you should do as a company or as the directors of a company. And interestingly, in the old days, whether you were a public or private company determined whether or not you had to have your financial statements audited and published. These days, it's not the case. It can be any company, even if it is a private company, if it is really big. In other words, if there are a lot of stakeholders that are going to be affected by the actions of the company. So interestingly, there's something called public interest. And if your business is very large, if your private company or public company is very large, it's known as a public interest company. And this is determined based on a scorecard of how many points you get, looking at what is the value of your assets, how much turnover do you have each year, how many employees, how many shareholders, etc. And the more points you've got, the more requirements you have to follow in regards to your auditing and publishing of your financial statements. There are a number of regulatory and professional bodies that look at the behavior of accountants, chartered accountants, auditors, etc. It's not required for you to actually remember all of these and to know them in great detail, but I think it's a good idea just to keep in mind that these professional bodies are those bodies to whom you would need to, or which you would need to join or register if you want to be a registered auditor or a registered chartered accountant, or even just a registered accountant. And basically they monitor the behavior of all the people in that profession. Most professions have got professional bodies of some kind, and these are the ones that are important for accounting. When you're maintaining your ethics within your business, it's a very good idea to have, obviously, a code of ethics, which tries to encourage the employees to behave in a certain way in line with what your business's corporate culture is. Do you remember I mentioned previously, ethics can be different in different environments for different people. It can mean different things. If you've got a code of ethics, that basically tells your employees what you think is good or bad ethical practice in your particular business, as well as any disciplinary procedures if those are contravened. It's quite important to also consider the Labour Relations Act and the basic conditions of employment in keeping all of these things in mind. Obviously, you can't have something in your code of ethics that contravenes these, and you do want your code of ethics to uphold these laws and requirements that you do need to have in your business. Consequences of unethical behavior will obviously depend on what level it is, whether it's within the business only, whether it's legal, illegal, etc. If somebody does something in the business that hasn't been done correctly, and they've just contravened the code of ethics within the business, then they might be given a written warning, or they might have be issued with a dismissal notice, but that would only be after they've gone through a proper disciplinary hearing procedure. Please, you cannot just fire employees. I do hope you realize that. You have to go through the correct procedure. But if, for example, you have given them numerous written warnings and they haven't performed as per agreements that have been put into place, etc., then you could implement a dismissal for a repeat offence. Obviously, from there, if the employee still disagrees with you, they can't go to the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration to dispute the dismissal. If there's something that has been done that is unethical and in contravention of the rules of the profession. Now, obviously, we're looking specifically at accounting, but the same would apply in absolutely any profession that you go into. If you do something that is unethical in the eyes of that profession and in the rules that have been laid out and the professional code of ethics, then you would probably find that you would go for a disciplinary hearing with that professional body, and they might implement a fine or some other disciplinary procedure, or they might even just deregister you, which is rather worrying, because then it means you've studied all these years to be a professional chartered accountant, for example, and suddenly you can no longer practice, because if you do something unethical and they deregister you, well, then what? So it's quite a good idea to keep all of these ethics in mind and behave ethically throughout. Obviously, the worst case is that something is done that is illegal or criminal, either by the employee or even by the company itself. Yes, companies can do things wrong. Of course, companies can't be thrown into prison, and so therefore, if there's something wrong by the company, they will be taken to civil court and they would be required to pay damages or fines, etc. If it's the actual employee, of course, they could also follow that particular route, or they could even go to criminal court and receive a fine or a jail sentence. So that's the consequences of if there's unethical behavior. So we now know how we want people to behave, but how do we try and make sure that people behave ethically and don't do something that is wrong and in contravention of these different codes, etc.? The controls are put in place into the business to try to safeguard all the business assets. Now, the purpose of that is obviously you don't want to lose your business assets, and also to ensure that people do act ethically, because obviously just putting a code of ethics into place doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is going to behave. So to back that up, you would have controls in place to try to ensure that people can't behave badly. And also, in addition to preventing people behaving badly, also, we are human and humans do make mistakes, and we want to try and prevent human error as far as possible. So the controls have actually got two sides to it. The one is let's get people to behave properly and so on. And also the second side is let's try to prevent any errors as far as possible. One would generally have more detailed controls for the assets that have got a higher risk. And what do I mean by high risk? Well, the things that people are going to want to go and steal most quickly and easily. So things like cash. If, for example, you were working at an Apple store, your stock would definitely be very, very high risk because everybody wants your Apple products. And the same would go for many different shops and businesses. But if, for example, you were a business that was busy producing parts to go into some machine, it's unlikely that you're going to have people stealing that quite as quickly, depending obviously on the demand. So how do we put controls into place? There are a number of different things that we can do. One of the things is division of duties. Now, please keep in mind, this does not mean duplication of duties. I do chuckle when people say, employ another accountant to just replicate the same job and then we can compare. No, that is totally impractical and not a good idea, and also completely unnecessary. If instead you take all the jobs that need to be done and you divide them between two or more people, but you divide them in such a way that they can act as a check on each other. For example, if you think of your debtors and creditors control accounts and your debtors and creditors ledgers, they act as a check on each other. So if you've got different people completing those different things, then it's quite easy to then do a little comparison and you can quickly see if something isn't quite as it should be. You can also do comparisons of your source documents that are coming in, the records that have been prepared. And it doesn't have to be that you check every single item. It would just be part of your internal auditing process. Check a random sample. If you are obviously buying goods and you get a delivery from a supplier, in that case, yes, you would want the person accepting deliveries to check the delivery note against the invoice and perhaps against what you ordered. Otherwise, maybe the suppliers just send a whole lot more stuff than what you actually need. And that obviously wouldn't be a good idea. Reconciliations, as I mentioned, it can be internal reconciliations with your debtors and creditors. It can also be external reconciliations with your creditor statements, with a bank statement. Wherever you've got two sets of records that should be the same, you can compare them and then try and look for any differences and understand them. And then, of course, obviously, the physical security. Lock your stock in a stock room, make sure that things are alarmed, only give certain people access to the different materials, etc., and so forth. Be careful when you are making suggestions about your controls. Make sure that your suggestions that you make are relevant to whatever situation has been given. So when they give you a case study and they tell you what products they're doing or what kind of business it is, please put this in your mind and visualize it throughout your entire question as you're answering it, because your suggestions must be realistic. If you, for example, say, we want to protect the towels in a hotel, and so just put cameras in the bathrooms to check that people aren't stealing the towels. Well, that's a bit silly because obviously you can't go and put cameras in the bathrooms. People are naked in there. Not a good idea. You will get sued. So please be realistic and think through your answers as you suggest them. Right. So once you've decided we want people to behave in a certain way and you've given them code of ethics, and then you put the controls into place just in case people don't quite get the code of ethics or, there's human error, etc. Once you've done all of that, the third part of it that you need to do is your internal auditing. And this is before you hand your stuff over to the external auditors. Keep in mind your external auditors, we'll look at a little bit more detail when we look at companies, but the external auditors are employed by the shareholders to try try and protect their interests. If we're looking internal auditing, we're saying this is the management of the business, just checking on itself and checking on the employees to see have the controls been properly implemented. So it's all very well saying, oh, we've got all these controls, but if you don't actually do them and carry them out, it's pointless. So internal auditing's purpose is to check that the controls are working. Please note the main purpose is not to look for fraud. Yes, fraud might be identified, but that is not the main purpose. It will hopefully ensure that your controls are preventing your unethical behavior and preventing your human error, because that was the whole purpose. And just as I said, keep in mind, it's not the same as your external auditing. Your external auditing is also not to try and look for fraud. That is never the purpose. We hope that obviously fraud is not taking place, but by having the controls in place, hopefully fraud would be identified. So it's certainly a secondary benefit that can be achieved through auditing. External auditing is done by people outside the business on behalf of the shareholders. And the aim of external auditing isn't to look for the controls and to see if there was fraud and, are your business assets being protected, but rather to verify the accuracy of the financial statements. So please do keep in mind those two different aims of auditing. Internal is to check that your controls are working. External is to verify that your financial statements are accurate and true and fair view of the business and that they can be trusted by the shareholders. So here are your three different parts that we've looked at in this little section. Just to recap on how they all fit together. Your ethical behavior is obviously really important in order to manage and run your business effectively in the interests of the stakeholders. Stakeholders being anybody with an interest in the success of the business. Your controls are there to try to safeguard those assets by preventing the unethical behavior and human error. And then your internal auditing checks if those controls are effective or not.